Justin, direct-to-consumer shipping is continuing to grow here in the United States, and more brands are doing their own fulfillment. What do you see are some of the challenges that the brands are facing with this specifically, and how are they handling those challenges?
Yeah, first what comes to mind is actually maybe first the benefits and the value that brands are experiencing with having a comprehensive strategy and looking at the direct-to-consumer market strategy. And the big difference is, I think, viewing this as an investment versus just a cost that is more associated historically with the logistics and the actual shipping component that can be associated with it. And there's plenty of challenges that it can bring to the table, from the resources that might be required to actually have greater quality control and the oversight that can come, certainly as brands are scaling and they're adding multiple product lines into a direct consumer type of a model. That being said, I think we're experiencing the leading brands that are getting the most value out of direct-to-consumer model are those that are taking a really purposeful approach to designing and engineering their packaging specific for that segment, and what that unlocks, frankly, for the overall brand experience. That's from the overall enhancement of telling the brand story through that medium, from the customer experience, like unboxing, which has become, whether that become a viral trend at times, but genuinely the authenticity that brands can bring forth through this medium when you actually focus on it as a standalone channel requires a bit of that investment mindset to it because there are more costs, there are more logistics to handle, and there can be the stress, mental stress, and the legitimate variables that also have to be managed that come with it. So it can take a longer term view to reap all the benefits that come from it. But we certainly see it as not just a growing trend, but one that's becoming a really critical component as an integrated strategy for our clients' overall market share gains, not just a segmented cost center.
Okay, excellent. Justin, that's amazing, because my follow-up question to, what are some of the challenges are, what is your position? Because on this particular piece, e-commerce specific packaging design, because Amazon has always been, they've been quite vocal about trying to communicate the values of that to their vendors so that they get more and more of the vendors creating e-commerce specific packaging, so that Amazon literally just, slaps a label and ships out in the brand owner's own package. They have a whole program for that, as obviously you're aware of too. So let's get into a little bit more of the challenges and what you see are maybe some solutions to those. So you mentioned costs and specifically skills, or the personnel identified in here. Why is there an added cost to creating e-commerce specific packaging?
Well, I think when you start to become more directly responsible for the overall protection of getting your goods, into consumers' hands in a way that one, like, minimizes the reverse logistics, the potential returns that might come from damaged goods and shipment. I think the design and engineering required so that as the package comes, and it's coming in a much more kind of direct touch way, as opposed to, a blank corrugated master shipper that might be happening previously. You want it to show up in a way that is inviting to the consumer to want to experience that unboxing that we talked about earlier. And so that requires a different type of engineering and design than maybe most companies are used to. And there's cost at times. That's a balancing act that can be associated with that. I think there's great opportunities. And Amazon, I know, has cited this at times for even some of the reduction in footprint and some of the efficiency gains that can come if you take this approach. There's opportunities for introducing sustainability goals into this approach. There's a lot of real valuable categories that can get covered when you take the time into this, but it does typically come at more of a financial cost and more of a time cost from the thought that needs to go into it. I spend a lot of time talking about these benefits because I feel really strongly, and as we're seeing, that if we can get our customers to focus off of maybe those upfront logistical challenges, the upfront engineering required, and maybe the financial cost to have a standalone package that is really geared towards e-commerce, it does unlock this connection between the multiple channels that most brands are typically selling in. And we want more and more of our customers that have an e-commerce strategy or are thinking about it to view this opportunity to have a strategy for big box for those that are in it, a strategy potentially for their own retail where it exists, and an equal strategy that is not just an extension of retail, but its own standalone that really complements across. And each of those have nuances to them, costs that have to be considered to cater to the parameters within each of those segments. And e-commerce is its own, but they each have value and benefits that the brand can reap from if they have their own distinct strategies.
Yep. And you talk about the nuances of this particular channel. You've already mentioned one of them that I want to go back to for just a second here, and that's the reverse logistics. But before we get to that, I do want to say that on the design side, yes, the environment of the small parcel shipping is much different. The demands on a primary pack, for instance, are much different than what we typically see with unitized pallet loads, which add another layer of protection that you don't get when you're shipping direct to the consumer. So that design aspect of it right there is one nuance. But I did want to get into the nuance, though, of reverse logistics, because it is just a matter of fact that you are going to have some returns if you're doing direct to consumer. And I don't know that a lot of people, you might think about the extra protection that you need in a small parcel environment, but do they think about that for both directions, like direct to consumer, but then directly coming back on the reverse side? What is a kind of maybe best practice for that particular piece of it?
Yeah, it's if I take the first part of the question, and do we see a lot of customers think about it? Most don't.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
And we certainly at Stevie Gould have been experiencing it as, again, another huge opportunity for our business model and the suite of services that we can provide to our clients, as one that we can bring some education to the forefront and showcase the types of solutions that can be put in place that attack some of the challenges that come with what is an inevitability, to your point, and how quickly can you address the returns as they come in? What's the speed at which you can get that product, identify what the challenge was, and get it corrected and then back out there into the market? That is not something that is typically been thought through. And we have clients of ours who, across all the services Stevie Gould can provide, and with packaging still at our core, we have reverse logistics programs that are in operation where that is the only service that we're actually providing for some of our clients, because it's still I view it as an untapped space where you don't have a lot of people, frankly, talking about how important it's becoming alongside this rise of DTC and e-commerce. It's been overlooked, I think, up to date.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I asked about it, because I also do think it's been overlooked. But what an amazing benefit for your company, though, to have a team specifically devoted to that. That's got to be a pretty big competitive advantage for you within the e-commerce space.
Yeah, and maybe one other element of it that's been eye-opening for a lot of our customers, and frankly, I would say maybe for us as well along the way, is that when you start to actually calculate, maybe some estimated or at best educated guesses on, the value of lost time, but when you actually then calculate the value of lost goods themselves that then have to be returned and the duration that they have to sit if you don't have programs really designed to evaluate and quickly assess what solutions need to put in place, it's really significant dollars that our customers are just allowing to kind of sit on the sideline. And so it is, again, as we find ourselves asking those questions, if our clients have a strategy for it, and you start to actually learn, most don't, and then we ask follow-ups and we get involved into where they're actually storing a lot of their returns and what is their solution to actually address. Many don't have any at all, and it kind of sits there out of sight, out of mind. And no one is thinking about the dollars associated with those goods and the opportunity that they're missing. So it is a really great avenue for us to provide value kind of right out of the gate, where there's not a lot of businesses that are looking at that particular component.
Excellent. I know we've been talking so far about direct to consumer shipping, but I want to look beyond that for just a second here and just tap your brain, see how are the packaging leaders maybe rethinking their supply chain strategy in general as it relates to costs and efficiencies and sustainability. I know there's been a lot going on from a tariffs point of view that companies have been dealing with. But if you wouldn't mind just, looking a little bit beyond just the direct to consumer area.
Yeah, it's what we see and I believe is a strength of Stephen Gould's business model is this movement towards a really integrated approach to our client supply chain solutions, instead of looking at certain components or materials in isolation, and really starting to say, what are all the different levers that our clients are looking to achieve? Are their goals really high on the sustainability front, and they're maybe willing to forego some efficiencies that might be gained? Are they really focused on developing multiple supply chains for the redundancy and the resiliency that might be needed because of the unknown of what changes might be coming in the future from an external market standpoint? I think looking at each one of those levers and providing choice to our clients is one of the things that sets us apart. And a quick example that comes to mind,
Oh,
I think
please.
is relevant to the question. We've recently redesigned and restructured the entire supply chain for a leading fitness tracking product, one of the leading products out there. And they cared a lot about sustainability, and they were already within a sustainable solution using molded pulp. But it was a China-based manufacturing solution, as a lot of molded pulp is.
Yep.
And as a tariff mitigation request, we actually designed, engineered, prototyped a new solution actually here in the US from a design and prototyping standpoint of one of our own design centers. And we were able to build out the supply chain within a combination of Malaysia and Mexico using paper foam. So still a sustainable solution from a paper foam standpoint, but it allowed us to move away from the highest tariffed country in China And at least from a cost reduction standpoint, it checked off the box from their sustainability goals enough, and it reduced some of the costs that they were experiencing in that particular solution. Again, that's the toggling of uh, the myriad of different goals that I think our clients are looking for, and being able to rapidly develop new solutions for them while
Mhm.
still maintaining, I think what's important is the real strong suit that we bring to the table today.
Justin, thanks for explaining all of that. I do want to follow up with a question about the redundancy in the supply chain.
Hmm.
Is that more um, needed in particular markets? Do you see that from your client's perspective, or is it just a safe strategy that you would recommend everyone do?
Yeah, it's a good question, and what I believe strongly that the the current state and the future of really top quality supply chain partners are those that bring agility, flexibility, choice to their clients. And whether it's a deliberate redundancy strategy or it's an ongoing evaluation of uh, the changing dynamics that continue to happen all around us externally, and evaluating if we have the best solutions in place to meet our clients' needs. And they may not be thinking about needing a redundancy plan, um, but it is something that we challenge ourselves to always have. um, I wouldn't even call it a backup plan in place, but it's really an alternative strategy if and when, because it's becoming more frequently when our
Mhm.
clients come to us and say, hey, whether it was through COVID and there's, uh, you know, challenges at the ports of getting product in. So like, what can we do when you've got a movement, maybe tariff induced towards, um, nearshoring efforts, um, and everything maybe in between. I think that ability to provide multiple strategies in parallel and really allow our clients to be as informed as possible with what they're trying to achieve, what options they have, and to prepare them to be able to move those really as seamlessly as humanly possible and as quickly as possible as dynamics around them change. I think that is a really critical partner that businesses should be having today because of the unpredictability of what we've been experiencing over these last several years.